starting off is not a good sign that you're going to be a good bodybuilder. Oh, you're morbidly obese. You should be a bodybuilder. Don't waste your genetics. You're Really? The only reasons I'm fat is because I'm a lazy piece of playing video games all day. I don't go to the gym. I don't run. I don't do cardio. And I eat like That doesn't give you an advantage to putting on muscle. This is ridiculous.
This is a brain rot special.
Tia Matic cooking in the basement.
Coach Greg, in today's video, what are the signs you have elite level genetics? You haven't trained before, or perhaps you're a teenager, you're in your 20s, and you're wondering, do I have what it takes? Should I hop on, or should I just give up immediately? Like, should I even bother? And so the Harvey Twins, they've suggested some certain characteristics, and we're gonna see. How high up on the list are they?
First one is if you have lots of veins, especially before you started the gym. Everyone knew that one guy in the class that would always just show off all his forearm veins.
Nope. And so how many veins you have, it's not just by how much muscle you have and how lean you are. It's also caused by your blood volume. Did you think of that? And so if you have a lot of blood, you're gonna notice your veins that much more. But you can have a shit ton of veins or almost none at all, and it has nothing to do with how good you're gonna place on a bodybuilding competition. Throughout my life, I was notorious for having hardly any veins whatsoever. When I competed, I wasn't known as a vascular guy. I didn't have horse veins all over my body, and it didn't matter. And remember, just like when you see Mr. Mike, who has vascularity everywhere, it doesn't mean you're gonna do well in a bodybuilding competition. I mean, look at Mr. Mike's legs. You see the veins, and then he flexes his quads. You cannot see any striations whatsoever.
If you take something like L-citrulline, that will increase the blood flow, therefore increasing the visibility of your veins.
And so if you have low body fat percentage combined with, for example, you're taking a pre-workout or pre-workout pump, for example, Alter Ego, which is a collaboration between HLT and Panda, then of course you're gonna have more veins. Add to that, you perhaps went to Algorex and got your Cialis, and that is a recipe for more veins than last time. And so whether you have a lot of veins or no veins, essentially it means absolutely nothing. And so not a sign, don't matter if you have veins or not. Have you all not seen skinny little guys with absolutely no muscle, horrible bone structure, but they're vascular everywhere, forearms, biceps? They're not gonna compete in a bodybuilding competition. They're made to run marathons.
Next we have starting skinny. Or originally I thought this was a really bad thing as it was super hard to put on weight and you had to just always eat. But later now I'm starting to think it's a blessing.
It's not a blessing to start off skinny. The only thing that being skinny benefits with you is that you're not gonna have to go on a cut. But remember, it's 2026. Back in the day, for example, when I used to compete, being able to get shredded, it was actually very hard. In 2026, you can buy a GLP. For example, you go to Algorex and you get a GLP. Now, whether you're using Ozempic or you're getting a tirzepatide or you're literally breaking the law and using retatrutide, well, that's on you. But that will decrease your appetite and make it very easy to get shredded. And so whether you start out fat, start out skinny, it's not a sign as to whether you have good genetics or not.
I would rather struggle to eat more than have to struggle to eat less.
I would rather struggle to eat more than struggle to eat less. Back in the day, this would be accurate. But in 2026, with pharmacology, with the GLPs, if you're struggling to eat less, you take the GLP and all of a sudden, it's easy. And so essentially, it makes no difference.
We are the poster boys for starting skinny. I mean, we were emaciated. We looked like aliens.
We were emaciated. I'm seeing two guys in black shorts with their shirts off. One looks normal, perhaps a little bit thin. The other one looks a little bit chubby. I don't consider this emaciated. I consider this younger teenagers, perhaps guys who haven't yet been to the gym. And so you can't look at these physiques and determine, oh, you have great potential or not.
Next, we have having jacked parents. If you do have jacked parents, that is a phenomenal sign. It's an A-grade sign that you have great muscle building genetics.
Having jacked parents, absolutely a God-gifted sign. Remember, you can't choose your parents. Your parents, they chose you. And so if your parents have wide shoulders, huge muscles, genetics to look at the weights and put on size, they most likely are going to transfer that to you. Remember, you get your genetics from your parents. It's not from your friends. It's not from your school teacher, your physical education. It's not even from Coach Greg. It's from your mom and your dad. And so if your mom and your dad have great genetics, you probably do as well. It's not just for bodybuilding. This applies to your height. If your parents are short, my dad is 5'5", my mom is 5 feet tall. My grandparents were short. And so I'm literally the tallest. And so technically speaking, I got all the height genes. Also, your intelligence. Are your parents smart? If they are, you're probably smart as well. And so everything boils down to the genetics that you got from your parents.
Next, we have having thick wrists. So this is due to you just having better bone density, having more of like a dense build.
Not a sign at all. How thick are your wrists? Do you have wide wrists? Do you have wide elbows? This is anthropometric measurements. We did this in university. You can determine, do you have very small bone structure, medium, or large? That has nothing to do with your potential as a bodybuilder. Think of it like this. The smaller your wrists, if you have really small wrists, really small elbows, very thin joints, the muscles look bigger. And so just because you don't have thick wrists, that you don't have a very large frame, it isn't actually a disadvantage because the muscles that you do have are going to look that much better. In comparison, if you have really massive wrists, huge, thick elbows, the 20-inch arm that you have won't look as big in comparison if you had small elbows and a small wrist. And so don't worry about the thickness or density or width of your bones. And in case you're wondering, I'm on the smaller size. We measured my bone structure, my elbows and so on, and I was below medium. I'm an IFBB pro, and so clearly the size of your bones, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter!
The Rock knows.
Next, we have starting off fat.
Starting off fat is not a good sign that you're going to be a good bodybuilder. Oh, you're morbidly obese. You should be a bodybuilder. Don't waste your genetics. You're fat. Really? The only reasons I'm fat is because I'm a lazy piece of shit playing video games all day. I don't go to the gym. I don't run. I don't do cardio. And I eat like shit. That doesn't give you an advantage to putting on muscle. This is ridiculous.
And I say that because usually you have a better baseline level of muscle mass and all you have to do is just strip away the fat.
No, you literally could be skinny fat. You could have 25% body fat and have no muscle whatsoever. Just because you have more fat doesn't mean you have more muscle. Some guys have a shit ton of fat and absolutely no muscle. Other guys have hardly any fat and a lot of muscle. I never had a ton of fat growing up. I wasn't skinny fat. I was always the biggest kid in my class. I had the most muscle. I was the strongest. And I wasn't fat. And so I wouldn't have looked at myself and said, oh, if I only was as fat as my classmates who are not exercising as much as me and eating more chips, then I would have better genetics. It makes no sense. And so fat, it's bottom tier. It doesn't help.
I'll probably put it in. It's not a sign that you have good genetics at all, really. I mean, I just kind of feel bad.
I mean, it's not a sign at all. And depending on how fat you are, for example, if you were like Mr. Mike, you know, you did that perma-bulk in your 20s because you didn't understand anything about training, even though you were studying to get a PhD, you might have to get your fat cells sucked out, you know, go through the liposuction and cut out all that excess loose skin. And so how does that benefit you? Being fat does not benefit you. It in fact can hurt you. And so if anything, if you're fat, it's a sign that it's going to be more difficult than last time.
All right, next we have having wide clavicles or just a good frame in general.
Yeah, if you're a frame cell, it's honestly over. I think just hide in your room.
And so frame maxing, abso-friggin-lutely. The clavicles. Remember clavicular, the name, it comes from clavicles. This is the bone over here. The wider it is, the better you're going to look. You want it to be barn door wide. I've seen various bodybuilders throughout my lifetime, and every single bodybuilder that stood out aesthetically, it's because they had very wide shoulders. The wider the shoulders, the wider the X-frame, it makes your waist look smaller, and it gives you the illusion of having an even smaller waist. And so if you were born with short clavicles, they're not very wide. It is horrendous. To be a bodybuilder and you're trying to get the extra width, you're gonna have to spasm the side laterals for years in order to make up the difference. Now, does it mean that you'll never be a professional bodybuilder? No. If you put on exercise, the most amount of delts possible, you also add in so much muscle to your frame that you make up for it. But you'll never be as good as if you had, for example, Derek Lunsford's shoulders or Chris Bumstead's shoulders. the wide shoulders and the small waist, that is what you want. And so if you start off lifting weights and you're already frame mogging, all you have to do is be consistent in the gym, slowly add some muscle. And even if you put on 10 or 20 pounds, it's going to look like you put on 40. And so clavicular width, one of, if not the most important thing to look for in order to have God tier genetics for bodybuilding. And that includes bodybuilding, classic physique, and men's physique. Every class, the wider the shoulders, the better.
Next we have being African. So I'm not actually trolling here. Like, this is actually a sign that you have great muscle building genetics.
You guys are gonna just watch this video and be like, oh, I'm black, I should be a bodybuilder because my genetics are amazing. No, this is ridiculous. Being black isn't equivalent to having wide shoulders. It's not equivalent to having jacked parents. And so whether or not you're white or, for example, a black natural athlete like Chris Bumstead, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everything else matters. You can be black with narrow shoulders and fat and have shitty muscle building potential, be skinny fat and have nothing going for you, or you can be white and have everything going for you in the world. And so whether you're black or not should have no bearing on whether you think you could be eventually a very good bodybuilder.
Next, we have round or full muscle bellies. This is a phenomenal sign, and it basically just means you're going to look way bigger than you really are. You're just going to get a way better ROI in the gym, to be honest.
And so, absolutely, the muscle insertions, where they insert on your body. For example, when you're doing a bicep, if it inserts back here versus here, which do you think looks bigger? Your bicep is huge. If it's a shorter arm, it's gonna have a smaller peak. And so depending on your genetics, you can have a great looking shape or awful looking shape. For example, they described black Africans having such amazing genetics. Typically, they have much worse genetics for their calves. They may have better genetics for having a smaller waist, but it depends on the individual. And so if you already look good right now, you flex your biceps and it looks cool. You do a rear double bicep pose, you flex your abs and you're thinking, wow, you have an 8-pack. That's impressive. Remember, if you can look good as, for example, when I was first competing, weighing just over 140 pounds, and if you already have the shape to win then, you know you have good genetics. And so when I was winning overalls as a lightweight bodybuilder, beating out heavyweights, you have to assume, you know what, if I actually go on steroids and I get bigger and I put on a lot of muscle, I'll eventually be very good because I'm already good right now at 150 pounds, competing against guys who weigh over 200 pounds.
Next, we have just being strong naturally. So people comment about your strength. In comparison to your friends, you're just a little bit stronger and you've never lifted.
Exactly. If you're very, very strong without trying, you already have that strength, you most likely have fast twitch muscle fibers. Fast twitch muscle fibers are much easier to get bigger than slow twitch muscle fibers. For example, if you're good at running marathons and you're slow at sprinting, or if you have a very high vertical jump, but you can run all day, you most likely have fast twitch muscle fibers, which allows you to be explosive in your jumps, to run the 100 meters dash very fast, or the 40-yard dash for the football players and so on. And so if you have the fast twitch muscle fibers, you're explosive, you're a very good athlete, then most likely you have better genetics for bodybuilding than if you have slow twitch muscle fibers, in which case you should probably take up riding in the Tour de France, doing Ironmans, doing all those long distance, steady state cardio sessions where you need cardiovascular fitness. If you're strong, however, you can slam dunk and you're 5'8", chances are you have very much explosive power and those muscles can grow very, very fast.
Next, we have perfect symmetry. So this is just having overall like great composition, like everything's in a really aesthetic spot, everything flows nicely.
And so definitely symmetry is important. And what is exactly a symmetry? It means that if you divide your body, the left to the right, it looks very much the same, and the top to the bottom, you divide it that way, also the same. Oftentimes I see guys with incredible physiques. They're wearing a tank top at the gym. Some of them are perhaps almost as big or even bigger than Coach Greg. And I always look down and I notice they're wearing track pants. Immediately that means they don't have leg muscles. Any man who has great looking quads is not wearing track pants to the gym. And so that would be symmetry. If you have a great looking upper body and the legs are there to match, you're going to be invincible in a bodybuilding competition. And so, thankfully, however, they do have a category for men who have horrible symmetry. It's called men's physique. They wear board shorts so that they can cover up their lack of muscularity in their quads, hamstrings, and so on, and it gives them a chance. Now, if they actually continue to train their legs, the top IFBB Pro men's physique competitors in the world, they probably still have great looking legs, but in comparison to their upper bodies, most of the time, it's a bit lackluster. Next, I'd like to add in height. Now, a big, tall bodybuilder is going to beat a big, short bodybuilder every single time. All things considered, if you're taller, you're going to look better. In particular, in classic physique with weight caps and so on. So, for example, if Chris Bumstead had been a 5'6" manlet like Coach Greg, he most likely would not have won 6 Mr. Olympia titles. Doesn't mean you have no chance, but it is better to be a little bit taller. But overall, if you're shorter, it's going to take probably less time, less years to fill out your frame in comparison to if you're 6 foot plus. Remember, they have weight classes, weight categories, height and weight divisions for men's classic physique. And so whether you're short like Derek Lunsford, who's in fact shorter than Coach Greg, or you're Andrew Jack or Samson Doda 6 foot plus, all of these men, short and or tall, can develop an impressive physique. Just hopefully you're not standing next to anyone. Another sign of elite level genetics is that once you start lifting weights, you notice that you put on a lot of muscle very quickly. Some guys, they might not have a lot of muscle when they start. Hussein Farhat comes to mind. Just playing video games, not doing anything. But once he stimulates that muscle, he actually goes to the gym. You grow like a weed. Very good sign that you have elite genetics. In comparison, if you do have a little bit of muscle, but you go to the gym and you're locked in, and 6 months later, you've only put on a couple of pounds, you probably don't have as high of a ceiling as somebody who puts on muscle very quickly. Some people are fast hyper responders and other are much slower. Now, in the end, despite the fact you may have some or all of these or none of these, you will not know unless you try. You might be a person who the first couple years you put on muscle very, very quickly, but then you stall out. Other people, the first couple years, they put on muscle rather slowly, but they continue. They're kind of like a diesel engine. They continue to put on muscle slowly year after year after year. Other people, the first couple years, they get huge, but then they can't continue to grow after that. In addition to that, you don't know if you're going to be a hyper responder or not to performance enhancing drugs. Some people will take creatine, put on lots of muscle very quickly. Other people, they take, for example, Turk Platinum, put on muscle quickly. Other people take GO2 Max and their cardio goes through the roof. Other people experience less than ideal gains. And so you'll never know until you try. And so whether or not you stand high on this, remember, compare yourself to yourself. Can you do better today than you did yesterday? Better tomorrow than you did today? Just because you may not be the next Mr. Olympia competitor and you may not get an IFBB Pro doesn't mean it's not fun. You don't have to be the best at something in order for it to be a good time. I'm racing bikes. I haven't bodybuilded in several years. Am I the best bike racer in the world? Not even close, but yet it's still fun. And so whether or not you have an elite level physique or elite level genetics, it really doesn't matter. Just do the best you can do. Ending it here. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algo. For AlgoRx, be sure to get your enclomiphene and GLPs and peptides at this site. Code Greg 10% off. And of course, you can get the cookbook and all my supplements on my website. Don't forget to watch any of those 2 bloops. If you want to be sponsored by me or be coached by myself and my team or carry my supplements in your store in your gym, click all of those links. And until next time, I am out.